My name is Emily Carter. I am 32 years old, and I live in Seattle, Washington. Most mornings I wake up before the sun, make myself a cup of coffee in my tiny apartment kitchen, and scroll through emails from my team at the tech startup where I work as a senior project manager. The city is always buzzing, even at 6 a.m., but sometimes I feel like I am standing still while everything and everyone else rushes by. In my family, I am the middle child. That label has always felt like both a comfort and a curse. My older brother, Jake, is the golden boy. He is 35, a financial analyst at a major firm downtown, and the kind of person who seems to collect awards and LinkedIn endorsements without even trying. My younger sister, Lily, is 28, an artist who floats from gallery to gallery, her life a swirl of color and late-night inspiration. Our parents, both retired teachers, beam with pride when they talk about Jake's latest promotion or Lily's new exhibit. Sometimes I feel like I am just the glue that keeps everyone else together, the steady one, the responsible one, but not the one who gets noticed. Growing up, I was the peacekeeper. I got straight A's, joined every club, and made sure the house was quiet when Jake needed to study or Lily was having one of her creative meltdowns. My parents would say things like, "Emily, you're so reliable," or "we never have to worry about you." But underneath the praise, there was always a sense that I was expected to hold everything together, never to fall apart, never to need anything for myself. Now, at 32, I manage a team of 12 people and oversee projects worth millions of dollars. Last quarter, I closed a $2.3 million deal with a major client. But when I called home to share the news, my mum said, "That's great, honey. Did you hear Jake got nominated for Employee of the Year?" I laughed it off, but inside I felt that old ache, the sense that no matter how high I climb, I'll always be standing in someone else's shadow. Family gatherings are the hardest. Thanksgiving is a parade of stories about Jake's new condo or Lily's latest commission. My achievements are mentioned in passing, if at all. Sometimes I catch myself rehearsing what I'll say at dinner, hoping for a moment when the spotlight might land on me, even just for a second, but it never does. I am the background music to everyone else's solo. I love my family truly, but there are days when I wonder what it would feel like to be seen for who I am, not just for the role I play. To have someone say, "Emily, I'm proud of you," not because I kept the peace or made things easier for everyone else, but because I did something remarkable on my own terms. Do you ever feel invisible in your own story, or find yourself wondering if your worth is measured only by what you do for others? I think a lot of us carry that weight, quietly, hoping one day someone will notice the effort it takes just to keep moving forward. Maybe the real question is, when will we start noticing it ourselves? The family incident that changed everything happened at Jake's wedding. It was the kind of event that seemed designed to impress. 220 guests, a live jazz quartet, a 5-tiered cake that cost more than my monthly rent, and a ballroom at the Fairmont that glowed with golden light. I had spent weeks searching for the perfect gift, finally settling on a custom espresso machine for Jake and his new wife, valued at just over $800. I'd even had their initials engraved on the side, thinking it would be something special, something lasting. The morning of the wedding, I arrived early to help set up. My mom handed me a clipboard and said, "Emily, can you make sure the place cards are all in order? You're always so organized." I smiled, used to being the helper, the one who made sure the details didn't fall through the cracks. As I moved through the tables, I noticed that my place card was at table 12, near the back, surrounded by distant cousins and a few people I barely recognized. I tried not to let it sting. Maybe it was just logistics. As the ceremony began, I watched Jake stand at the altar, beaming, while our parents sat in the front row. I felt a pang of pride, but also a familiar ache, the sense that I was a spectator, not a star player in my own family's story. After the vows, as guests mingled during cocktail hour, I found myself standing alone near the bar, sipping a 16-ounce glass of Chardonnay, watching as my parents introduced Jake and his bride to everyone who mattered. When I approached, my mom smiled tightly and said, "Oh, Emily, can you take a photo of us with the newlyweds? You're so good with your phone." I took the picture, then stood awkwardly as they moved on to greet more guests. Later during dinner, I overheard a conversation at the head table. Jake was thanking everyone who had helped make the wedding possible. He named Lily for her painting that hung in the entryway, Aunt Carol for the floral arrangements, and even a family friend who had baked the bread. My name never came up, even though I had spent hours helping with logistics and had contributed one of the most expensive gifts. As the night wore on, I tried to shake off the feeling of being invisible. I danced, made small talk, and even laughed when someone spilled champagne on my dress. But the final blow came during the gift opening the next morning. I had stayed at the hotel, hoping to share in the post-wedding excitement. In the suite, Jake and his wife opened gifts in front of a small crowd. Our parents, Lily, and a few close friends. When they got to my espresso machine, Jake read the card aloud, then set it aside without comment. His new wife glanced at it and said, "Oh, another coffee thing. We have so many. Maybe we can re-gift it." I felt my face flush. My mum must have seen my expression because she leaned over and whispered, "Don't take it personally, honey. They just have different tastes." I wanted to say, "It's not about the machine. It's about never being seen, never being appreciated for who I am or what I give." But the words caught in my throat. I spent the rest of the morning in silence, watching as everyone else's gifts were gushed over and admired. Lily's painting was declared a masterpiece. Aunt Carol's flowers were called the highlight of the decor. My gift was just another item in a pile, easily forgotten. On the drive home, I replayed every moment in my mind. The $800 I'd spent on the machine, the hours I'd helped with planning, the way my own family seemed to look right through me, as if I were just another guest at someone else's celebration. I thought about all the times I'd been the helper, the organizer, the one who made things run smoothly so everyone else could shine. Have you ever felt like you were giving everything you had, only to be met with indifference? Like you were standing in the middle of a crowded room, waving your arms, but nobody looked up? I wonder how many of us have been there, quietly hoping that one day someone will notice the effort, the love, the care we pour into the people who matter most. Maybe the real question is, how long do we keep trying before we finally choose to see ourselves? I drove home from Jake's wedding in a fog, the city lights blurring through the windshield as if I were underwater. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, knotted with a kind of ache I couldn't name. The silence in my car was different than the silence at the wedding. This was the silence of finally hearing my own disappointment echo back at me. When I got home, I sat on the edge of my bed, still in my dress, the hem stained with spilled champagne. I stared at my phone for hours, scrolling through the family group chat, watching the stream of photos and inside jokes from the wedding after party. My name didn't appear once. I kept thinking about the espresso machine. $800, months of careful saving. A gift I'd chosen with hope. I remembered the way Jake's wife had dismissed it, the way my mum had shrugged off my hurt. I kept replaying the moment Jake thanked everyone but me for making his wedding special. I wondered if he even noticed. Rage and heartbreak tangled inside me, a knot I couldn't untie. I thought about all the holidays where I'd shown up early to help cook, decorate, wrap gifts. The year Dad's bonus fell through, and I quietly covered the $800 catering bill for Christmas dinner. The countless times I'd driven Lily home after her art shows, or helped Jake polish his resume, or sat with Mom in the hospital when she had her surgery in 2017. I'd always been the one to step in, to fill the gaps, to make sure things ran smoothly. But I couldn't remember the last time anyone had done the same for me. My phone buzzed with a text from Sam. "You okay? Want me to come over?" I hesitated, then called her, my voice shaking. I told her everything, the wedding, the gift, the way I felt invisible. She was quiet for a moment, then said, "You don't have to choose. Not this time." Her words hung in the air, soft but solid, like a hand on my shoulder. I realized I was waiting for someone to give me permission to put myself first. That night, I Venmo'd my mom $500 for the family secret Santa, the same amount I'd given every year since I started working. I texted her, "I won't be coming to Christmas. Hope it's a great one." Then I muted the family chat, turned off my phone, and cried until 2 a.m. The tears weren't just for the wedding. They were for every time I'd been overlooked. Every time I'd been told I was reliable but never remarkable. Every time I'd swallowed my own needs for the sake of keeping the peace. The next morning, I woke up with swollen eyes and a strange sense of emptiness. I made coffee in my quiet apartment, the only sound the hum of the heater and the clink of my mug. I stared out the window at the gray Seattle sky and tried to remember the last time I'd done something just for myself. I thought about the condo I'd bought, the pride I'd felt signing the papers. the way no one in my family had really celebrated with me. I thought about Sam, about how she always saw me, always listened, always made space for my feelings. I realized I'd spent most of my life trying to earn a place at a table that would never really be mine. Memories flickered through my mind like old home movies. My 10th birthday, when Jake got a new bike and I got a sweater. High school graduation, when Lily's painting won an award and my acceptance to UW was barely mentioned. The year I got promoted and my mom said, "That's nice, but Jake just bought a house." I saw the pattern clear as day. I was the background, the scaffolding, the safety net, never the main event. I spent the weekend in a kind of quiet rebellion. I went for a long walk in Discovery Park, letting the cold air sting my cheeks. I bought myself a bouquet of sunflowers at Pike Place Market, $18, the same amount I'd spent on a bottle of wine for Jake's rehearsal dinner. I cooked dinner with Sam and let her hold me when the sadness crept in. I didn't answer any family texts, didn't check the group chat, didn't apologize for my absence. Part of me felt guilty. The old sense of responsibility tugged at me. What if Mum was hurt? What if Jake noticed? What if Lily needed me? But another part of me, a quieter, stronger part, whispered that it was okay to choose myself, that I didn't have to keep pouring from an empty cup. On Sunday night, I sat at my kitchen table, journal open, pen in hand. I wrote down every time I'd put my family first, every time I'd been overlooked. Then I wrote what I wanted, to be seen, to be valued, to be loved for who I am, not just for what I give. I realized I'd been waiting for someone else to notice my worth, when maybe it was time to notice it myself. Have you ever reached a point where you couldn't keep giving without being seen? Where the weight of responsibility and the ache of invisibility finally tipped the scales? I wonder how many of us have been there, quietly holding families together, hoping someone will turn around and say, "I see you." Maybe the real question is, when do we start saying it to ourselves? When do we decide that our own peace is worth protecting, even if it means stepping away? I'd love to know if you've ever felt the same. Part 4. Climax, the unexpected twist. The turning point came on Christmas Eve, 3 weeks after I'd skipped the family gathering. I'd spent $3,200 to rent a rooftop lounge downtown, a glass-walled space with views of the Seattle skyline and the Sound. I called it the unofficial family reunion and invited everyone who'd ever felt sidelined by their own relatives. My coworker Mark, whose parents didn't accept his divorce, my neighbor Mrs. Nguyen, still grieving her husband, even Sam's cousin, who'd been disowned for coming out. 47 people RSVP'd. I ordered catering for 50, hired a jazz trio, and set up a family wall where guests pinned photos of chosen family, the ones who'd truly seen them. The night began softly. Snowflakes drifted outside the windows as the room filled with laughter and the scent of rosemary roasted chicken. I wore a red dress I'd bought on clearance for $45, my hair loose for once, instead of pinned into perfection. Sam squeezed my hand as guests arrived, their relief palpable. No one here had to perform. No one here had to be enough. Halfway through the evening, as I refilled the punch bowl, I heard a familiar voice behind me. Emily. I turned. Jake stood there in his cashmere coat, cheeks red from the cold, holding a wrapped gift. The room seemed to tilt. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice steady but my hands trembling. "Mom's frantic. She's been blowing up my phone." He shifted awkwardly. "She said you weren't answering." "I know, I didn't want to." He glanced around the room, the jazz trio playing Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, the family wall bursting with Polaroids and handwritten notes, the buffet table where Mrs. Nguyen was teaching Mark how to make spring rolls. "This is really nice, Em." Nice. The word hung between us, a bridge and a barrier. "Why did you come?" I asked. He set the gift on the table. "Mom said you were throwing some pity party, but this..." He gestured to the room. "This isn't pity." "No, it's not." He hesitated, then pulled a photo from his coat pocket, a creased snapshot of us as kids, building a snowman in the backyard. "I found this in Dad's office. Thought you might want it." I took the photo, throat tight. In the corner, someone had written Jake and Emily, 1998 in Mom's handwriting. I'd forgotten that snowman. Forgotten how we'd laughed when it toppled over. "Why didn't you ever say anything?" Jake murmured. "About feeling left out." I stared at him. "Would you have listened?" He flinched. Maybe not, but I'm listening now. The room buzzed around us, but for once I wasn't the backdrop. I was the story. Later, as the clock neared midnight, my phone lit up with 3 texts from Mom. Where are you? Why isn't Jake answering? Are you okay? I didn't reply. Instead, I stood on a chair, clinking a fork against my glass. The room quieted. 47 faces turned to me, expectant, warm. I just want to say, this isn't a replacement family. It's a reminder that we get to choose who sees us, who values us. Thank you for choosing to be here. Applause rippled through the room. Mrs. Nguyen pressed a hand to her heart. Sam wiped her eyes. And Jake, who'd never clapped for me once, stepped forward and hugged me. I'm sorry, he whispered. For the wedding? For everything. I didn't say it was okay, because it wasn't. But I hugged him back because maybe it could be. As the crowd filtered out, Jake lingered. Can I help clean up? I handed him a trash bag. Sure. We worked in silence, gathering plates and stacking chairs. At one point, he paused, holding a Polaroid from the family wall, a shot of me and Sam, laughing in front of my condo's Christmas tree. You look happy, he said. I am, he nodded, as if filing that away. When we finished, he pulled on his coat and turned at the door. Next year, maybe I could bring my wife here. If you do this again, I smiled. We'll see. The text from Mom came an hour later. Please call me. I didn't, not that night. But as I stood at the window, watching snow blanket the city, I realized something. For the first time, I wasn't waiting for permission to matter. I wasn't waiting at all. Have you ever created something beautiful out of the pieces others overlooked? Or discovered that the family you needed wasn't the one you were born into? I'm learning that belonging isn't given. It's built. And maybe that's the most powerful kind of love there is. What do you think? It's April now. The cherry blossoms have started to open along my street, petals drifting onto the windshield of my car each morning. I haven't been home since Christmas. My parents send the occasional text, short, cautious, sometimes just a photo of the cat or a forwarded meme. I see the notifications, but I haven't responded yet. There's a strange comfort in the silence, like the hush after a storm, when you're not sure if it's safe to step outside or if the sky is just catching its breath. Jake and Lily have both reached out. Lily sent a painting, a watercolor of 2 women walking along the beach, hand in hand. She wrote, "For you and Sam, may you always find your own horizon." Jake called last week, voice awkward but earnest. He said, I miss you, Em. I'm sorry for not seeing you sooner. I told him I needed time. He said, take all you need. I'll be here. Sam and I are planning a summer trip to Mexico, our first real vacation together. We've booked a little casita in Tulum, just a 10-minute walk from the sea. We spent hours on Airbnb, comparing photos, reading reviews, laughing at listings with quirky plumbing and rustic beds. The trip cost $2,400, more than I've ever spent on myself for something purely joyful. I used to feel guilty about that, as if pleasure had to be earned through sacrifice. Now I see it differently. I'm not running away from anything. I'm running toward the life I want. Sometimes I still ache for the family I wish I had. There are moments, quiet ones usually, when I'm making coffee or folding laundry, when I remember the way my mother used to braid my hair before school, or the summer nights Jake and I spent catching fireflies in the backyard. I miss the idea of family, the version I built in my mind, where love was unconditional and belonging was a given. But when I look back at that Christmas night, at the room full of laughter and chosen family, I know I finally claimed my own worth. The rooftop lounge invoice is still pinned to my fridge. $200 for one night, 47 guests, 3 hours of music, and more than 100 photos tacked to the family wall. Sometimes I stand in front of it, remembering the sound of Mrs. Nguyen's laughter, the way Mark's eyes lit up when the jazz trio played his favorite song, the warmth of Sam's hand in mine. I built something beautiful out of what I was given, even if it wasn't what I'd hoped for. Maybe forgiveness will come. Maybe it won't. I'm not sure what reconciliation looks like, or if it's even possible. I know I'm not angry anymore, not in the way I once was. The sharp edges have softened, replaced by something quieter, more resolute. I'm done asking for a seat at a table where I'm not welcome. I'm done shrinking myself to fit someone else's idea of who I should be. Now I set my own table. Sometimes it's just Sam and me. eating takeout on the couch, feet tangled under a blanket. Sometimes it's a crowd, friends, neighbors, co-workers, each person bringing their own story, their own flavor, their own light. There's no script, no roles to play, just the simple, radical act of showing up as ourselves. I wonder, how many of us spend our lives trying to fold ourselves into shapes that make other people comfortable? How often do we silence our own needs, our own truths, for the sake of peace that never quite feels like peace? What would happen if, just once, we stopped asking for permission and started building our own table instead? What does family mean to you? And where do you draw your boundaries? How do you balance forgiveness and self-respect, love and honesty? I'd love to hear your story if you're willing to share. Because in the end, maybe belonging isn't about being accepted by everyone. Maybe it's about accepting ourselves fiercely and without apology, and inviting others to join us. Not because we need their approval, but because we have something real and beautiful to offer. Maybe that's where healing begins. What do you think?